most dangerous thing in the woods isn't an animal. It's what doesn't have a name. Figures shaped like humans watch from the dark, then vanish before you can react. One photo revealed dozens of thin figures standing silently behind the camera, unseen at the time. Another shows a shadow luring a young woman deeper into the forest. She was never found. These aren't stories. They're real moments that froze people in fear. So ask yourself, how many horrors are still watching us in the woods? How it all began. It started as a normal setup. A camera was placed deep in the woods to monitor wildlife, with nothing staged or unusual about it. For the first several days, the footage was exactly what you would expect. Trees moving with the wind, insects crossing the lens, and long stretches where nothing happened. It was routine and easy to ignore. That is why what followed feels so unsettling. No one was searching for anything strange, and this was not a paranormal experiment. It was just a camera doing its job, left alone in the woods. Everything changed once night vision activated. The same location suddenly felt different. Shadows stretched farther, depth became harder to judge, and every movement felt more important. At first, the footage was easy to explain away as animals or wind. Then the camera captured movement that did not behave like any known animal. The figure stopped and started, as if deciding where to go. It did not wander. It moved directly toward the camera. The shape was tall and unnatural, and it seemed to know exactly where the camera was. Then it vanished without a sound. After that, more figures appeared, more often, and strange clicking sounds followed, recorded at intervals unlike any cataloged wildlife in the region. By then, it was clear whatever was out there had noticed the camera. How bad it gets. If the first clips already felt uncomfortable, those were actually the calm moments. At the start, the camera only picked up something strange every 3 to 4 nights. A shadow between trees, a shape that didn't quite make sense. With enough space between appearances, it was easy to explain it away as lighting, animals, or imagination. That didn't last. The sightings started happening more often, sometimes night after night. Whatever was out there wasn't passing through anymore. It kept coming back, and each time it showed up, it was closer to the camera. What used to be vague shapes at the edge of the frame slowly became clear figures standing in plain sight. The movement made it worse. These things didn't act like animals or people. They moved slowly, carefully, like they were watching and learning. In one clip, a tall figure stands completely still for several minutes, facing the camera, not shifting or reacting at all. Then the sounds start. Low clicking, steady breathing, and noises that come dangerously close to whispers. Not random, controlled. At one point, the camera jolts like something touched it. The angle shifts, and suddenly it's clear there's something behind the camera too. From there, the footage turns chaotic. Figures approach the lens rapidly, stare without blinking, then pull back. By the end, the question isn't what they were, it's whether the camera was ever meant to be left there at all. Skinwalkers. In Navajo tradition, skinwalkers are described as beings. A skinwalker is said to be something that can take the shape of animals, and sometimes even people, but it never gets the transformation completely right. There's always something slightly off, a detail you can't quite explain. And that same uneasy feeling is what many viewers experienced while watching this footage. At first, the figure looks almost normal. You could easily mistake it for a deer or a large dog moving through the trees. But the longer you watch, the harder that explanation becomes. The way it moves feels wrong. It stops too suddenly, turns its head too slowly, and seems far too aware of where the camera is placed. Wild animals don't usually behave like that. People familiar with skinwalker stories pointed out that these creatures are often described as watchers. They don't rush in. They observe, learn patterns, and test their surroundings. When you re-watch the footage with that in mind, the behavior starts to line up in an uncomfortable way. One moment stands out to almost everyone. The figure moves low like an animal, then briefly rises, not fully standing but enough to make you pause and rewind. Skinwalker folklore often mentions these incomplete shifts. What really unsettles people is that the creature never shows fear. It doesn't panic when it's seen. It just keeps coming back, which leaves one quiet question hanging in the air. What happens when it's done watching? The Rake. If you've been online long enough, you've probably heard the name at least once. And if you haven't, once someone mentions it and you know what to look for, it's hard to ignore. When the footage started spreading, people quickly began connecting it to the Rake. What makes the Rake scary isn't loud behavior or sudden attacks. It's the opposite. It's known for being quiet, patient, and observant. Instead of rushing in, it watches first, and that alone makes people uneasy. The Rake is usually described as a pale, thin humanoid with arms and legs that look too long for its body. No fur, no clear face, just an unnatural shape that feels wrong the longer you look at it. When viewers went through the footage frame by frame, those descriptions started to line up. In several moments, the figure appears upright but hunched, like standing isn't natural for it. Its arms hang too low and it barely moves, just stays there facing the camera. That stillness didn't feel like fear. It felt deliberate. When it does move, it's slow and controlled. No panic, no chaos. And as the footage goes on, it seems to get closer, little by little. The most unsettling part is a slight head turn toward the camera, as if it knew it was being watched and didn't care. If that really was the Rake, it wasn't surprising. It was already there, and it was already looking back. Shadow people. Those tall, dark figures standing just at the edge of the camera frame are what a lot of people believe are shadow people. They're usually described as human-shaped silhouettes, completely black, no face, no details. Just a solid outline that looks like a person, but doesn't quite feel like one. What makes them creepy isn't movement. It's how still they are. They don't rush, they don't chase. They just stand there, watching. In a lot of reported encounters, shadow people don't show themselves fully, sometimes interpreted as spiritual presence. They stay half-hidden, peeking from behind doorways, trees, corners, or just barely inside the frame. That's exactly what happens here. The figures never step forward. They never try to get closer. It's like they want to be seen, but only enough to let you know they're there. Another thing people mention all the time is how aware shadow people seem. They don't act confused or animal-like. They feel deliberate, like they know the camera is there and are choosing how much to reveal. That's why footage like this messes with people. The positioning feels intentional, not random. What really adds to the unease is that these figures don't behave like normal shadows. Lighting doesn't explain them, and they don't move the way shadows should when the environment changes. They stay solid, fixed, almost too defined. According to countless stories, shadow people are more about observing than interacting. They don't attack, they don't communicate, they just watch. And somehow that makes it worse, because it leaves you wondering how long they've been there, and how many times they've been seen without anyone noticing. And when they finally disappear, it's usually the same way they appeared, quietly, without explanation, like they were never meant to be caught on camera in the first place. Wendigo. Wendigos are usually described as extremely tall, thin, and unnaturally proportioned. Not just tall for a human, but tall in a way that feels wrong, like the body was stretched beyond what it should be. That detail alone stood out, because the figures in the footage were clearly towering over their surroundings. Trees, bushes, and even the camera angle made it obvious these weren't normal human heights. Another reason people made the connection was the setting. Wendigos are traditionally linked to forests, remote areas, and places where people are isolated for long periods of time. That matches the environment in the footage almost perfectly. Wendigo traditions emphasize not just physical appearance but spiritual warning. In Algonquian cultures, these entities represent the consequences of isolation, greed, and taboo violation. The descriptions passed down through generations consistently mention extreme height and gaunt features that seem wrong to witness. Nothing about the area looked busy or lived in. It looked quiet, empty, and undisturbed. What really unsettled viewers, though, was how still the figures were. They weren't pacing, wandering, or acting confused. They just stood there watching. That kind of behavior lines up with how Wendigos are often described, not aggressive right away, but observant, almost like they're studying their surroundings. The combination of the height, the location, and the calm, unmoving presence made it hard for people to brush the sightings off as tricks of the camera. Mimic entities. As the footage kept circulating, many viewers familiar with cryptid folklore started suggesting another explanation. They believed at least one of the creatures fit what's often called a mimic entity. This idea didn't come from how it looked, but from what people were hearing in the audio. Mimic entities are known for copying sounds they pick up from their environment. That can include breathing, soft whispers, or even pieces of human speech. The key thing is that the sounds never come out quite right. They usually sound off, like the timing is wrong or the tone doesn't match what a real person would make. When listeners analyzed the audio, some reported hearing unusual patterns that were easy to miss at first. There were rhythmic sounds that didn't match footsteps or animals moving through the area. Some noises were close to human breathing but slightly uneven, like something was trying to copy it without fully understanding how it works. A few moments even sounded like broken speech. Not clear words, but noises that sat right on the edge of being recognizable. That's what really pushed the mimic theory forward. Animals usually make consistent sounds, and humans sound intentional. These recordings didn't fit either category. What made viewers uncomfortable was the possibility that whatever was making those noises wasn't just passing through. It sounded like it was listening first, learning, and then trying to repeat what it heard. Feral humanoids. Another theory that came up a lot was the idea of feral humanoids. These are beings that look mostly human but behave in ways that don't line up with normal human behavior at all. People brought this up because the figures didn't really move like animals, but they also didn't move like regular people either. This theory is controversial and largely unsupported by documented evidence. True cases of feral children are extremely rare, involve tragic circumstances, and occur in early development, not as adults choosing wilderness living. In the footage, the movements looked deliberate and controlled, not random or instinctive. At the same time, the posture was off. The way they stood, crouched, or shifted their weight didn't match how someone familiar with their own body would move. It looked awkward, like they weren't fully comfortable moving upright or being seen. Another thing that pushed this theory was the location. These figures were deep in the woods, far from homes, roads, or any sign of normal human activity. Long-term wilderness survival without tools, shelter, or clothing is extremely difficult in temperate climates, making human habitation of these areas unlikely. There was no talking, no shouting, and no attempt to communicate, just silence. What made it unsettling was the lack of awareness you'd expect from a person. No reaction to the camera, no obvious curiosity or fear. They just existed in space, moving when they needed to and stopping when they didn't. This explanation is controversial, but people often turn to it when sightings don't fully match known cryptids. It sits in an uncomfortable middle ground, not quite human, not quite something else, which is why it's stuck with so many viewers. Unknown cryptids. Finally, there's a category that makes a lot of people uncomfortable because it doesn't come with a clear label. Some of the footage just doesn't match any known creature people usually talk about. Viewers tried comparing it to skinwalkers, crawlers, shadow entities, and even more common explanations, but nothing really lined up. These figures didn't move the way those creatures are usually described. Their timing was different, their movements were shorter and more controlled, and they often appeared only for a moment. In some clips, they show up just long enough to be noticed, then vanish without any obvious path of escape. No sound, no clear direction, and no sign of where they went. That's what made people pause. Normally, even strange animals leave some kind of explanation behind. You expect movement, noise, or at least a trail. In this case, there was nothing. It was like the camera caught something passing through rather than something living there. Because of that, many viewers started suggesting the footage might show previously undocumented cryptids, not creatures with established stories or names, but something unknown. However, without clear footage, consistent sighting patterns, or physical evidence, this remains speculation rather than documented cryptozoology. The idea isn't that these beings are new, just that they haven't been identified or categorized yet. What unsettled people most was how casual the appearances felt. These things didn't seem lost or confused. They showed up briefly, did what they needed to do, and disappeared, almost as if being seen wasn't a problem at all. Jersey Devil. Have you ever heard of the Jersey Devil? It's this legendary creature from New Jersey's Pine Barrens, and people have been freaked out by it for centuries. The story goes that it was born to a woman named Mother Leeds, her 13th child. And somehow it came out as this freaky, winged creature with hooves and a goat-like face. Creepy, right? What's unsettling isn't just the look, it's how people describe it acting. It doesn't really attack humans, but it watches, swoops in, and disappears before you even know what you're seeing. Locals talk about hearing its terrifying scream echoing through the trees at night. Some have found weird footprints in the snow or mud, or livestock acting panicked for no reason. Back in 1909, there were reports all over the state. People claimed to see it flying across the sky or perched in trees. The newspapers blew it up, and suddenly everyone was on edge. Even today, folks who live near the Pine Barrens say that at night, you can feel something watching, something moving in ways that don't make sense. Whether it's real or not, just thinking about it gives you that uneasy, maybe I'm being watched feeling when the woods go quiet. The Dogman. The Dogman is one of those creatures that makes you rethink gong camping at night. Mostly spotted in Michigan, but there are stories from other states too. It's described as this huge, muscular creature that's part man, part wolf. People talk about glowing eyes in the trees and this low, terrifying growl that makes your skin crawl. What's really unnerving is how fast it moves. Witnesses say it can disappear into the woods in a second like it's barely touching the ground. Campers have reported their dogs barking at nothing, feeling like something is stalking them, or hearing branches snap when no one is there. Drivers on remote roads have claimed they saw a massive, hunched figure crossing at night. It didn't run like an animal, it just moved with this unnatural speed and strength. Most Dogman sightings are concentrated in Michigan and Wisconsin, though reports have emerged from other forested regions. The thing about the Dogman is that it feels like it's studying you. People describe a sense of being watched for hours, even when they can't see it anymore. Unlike some legends, this one leaves a lingering unease, like the woods aren't just empty at night. You start double-checking every sound, every shadow, and you know the psychological impact of these reports shows how deeply the legend has embedded itself in regional culture. Chupacabra. If you've ever heard of the Chupacabra, you know it's basically the nightmare of any farmer. Stories mostly come from Latin America, but people have claimed sightings in the US, too. It's described as a small, spiny creature with glowing red or green eyes, and it has a really disturbing habit, draining the blood of livestock. Goats, chickens, even sometimes larger animals, left completely drained, sometimes with no other signs of struggle. Farmers swear by it. Some say they've seen the creature hopping around the fields at night, moving in short bursts, and disappearing into the shadows like it was never there. The way it attacks is what creeps people out the most. It's not like a normal predator, it's fast, almost surgical, and leaves a kind of fear in the air that animals can sense. Dogs go crazy, cats hide, and sometimes even humans report an eerie feeling, like the creature is observing them. The Chupacabra connection is the weakest among theories presented. This creature is associated with tropical/subtropical livestock attacks, not temperate forest activity. The comparison likely reflects viewers applying familiar labels to unfamiliar footage rather than genuine correlation. No one really knows what the Chupacabra is. Some say it's a mutated animal, some think it might even be alien. But the stories are consistent enough to make you pause if you're ever in a rural area at night and hear strange noises. Suddenly, those empty fields don't feel so empty anymore. If that story caught you off guard, stay right here. Hit subscribe, tap the like button, and tell me in the comments which moment made your stomach drop. Trust me, the next one is even crazier, and once you hear it, there's no going back.